When my tech consulting firm was destroyed by sophisticated cyber attacks and my reputation ruined by anonymous accusations, I never suspected that my supportive sister Jessica was the mastermind behind it all. She comforted me through every crisis, helped me analyze the attacks, and seemed as devastated as I was by each new assault on my business. But when our former nanny Linda revealed that Jessica had discovered she was adopted and would inherit nothing from our parents' will, everything made terrifying sense. The hacking, identity theft, and psychological warfare weren't random. They were part of a 15-year revenge plot by someone who felt betrayed by our family's love and wanted to destroy everything I'd built. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now let's dive into today's story. The emergency notification that would destroy Taylor Harris's carefully built empire arrived at 4:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, jolting her from the first peaceful sleep she'd managed in months. As she grabbed her phone with shaking hands, the message from her security team sent ice through her veins. Critical breach. Harris Tech Solutions, all systems compromised. The sophisticated cyber attack that had been systematically dismantling her Seattle-based consulting firm for weeks had just reached its devastating climax, and Taylor knew that whoever was behind this had intimate knowledge of every weakness in her digital infrastructure. Taylor's hands trembled as she dressed and raced through the empty Seattle streets toward her downtown office, her mind reeling with the implications of what she was about to discover. Harris Tech Solutions wasn't just her business, it was her life's work. Built from nothing into a multi-million-dollar consulting firm that served Fortune 500 companies across the Pacific Northwest. The cyber attacks, anonymous accusations, and systematic destruction of her reputation had felt personal from the beginning, but she'd never imagined the enemy was someone who knew her most intimate secrets. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt like descending into hell as Taylor prepared to face the wreckage of everything she'd worked 12 years to build. Anonymous tips to the Washington State Department of Revenue, fraudulent communications to her biggest clients, and now a complete system breach that would expose confidential information worth millions of dollars. Someone wasn't just trying to destroy her business, they were trying to destroy her soul, and they knew exactly how to make every attack hurt the most. As the elevator doors opened to reveal her once pristine office space in chaos, Taylor felt the same bone-deep certainty that had been haunting her for weeks finally crystallize into terrifying clarity. This wasn't corporate espionage or random criminal activity. This was intimate, personal warfare orchestrated by someone who understood her vulnerabilities completely. The thought that was forming in her mind was too horrific to accept, but it wouldn't be silenced. What if her greatest enemy was someone she loved and trusted with everything she had? Taylor Harris stood in the wreckage of Harris Tech Solutions, her 12-year dream reduced to chaos and betrayal. At 35, she had built one of Seattle's most respected technology consulting firms from her garage apartment, earning contracts with Amazon, Microsoft, and other tech giants while maintaining the innovative edge that set her apart from larger competitors. Now, staring at the destruction of her corner office, she felt the same helplessness she had experienced as a child when playground bullies targeted her for being smarter than they were. The cyber attack was only the latest assault in what had become a coordinated campaign of digital destruction. Over the past 2 months, anonymous tips about alleged security breaches and financial misconduct had reached the Washington State Department of Revenue, the Better Business Bureau, and technology industry publications. 4 major clients, contracts worth over $500,000 annually, had terminated their agreements based on accusations that Taylor was selling proprietary information to competitors and manipulating billing systems. Her business bank accounts had been frozen pending investigation, leaving her unable to pay her team of 15 employees or maintain the expensive office lease in downtown Seattle. The carefully cultivated reputation that had taken years to build was crumbling under a relentless assault of rumors, accusations, and now physical evidence that her systems had been compromised from the inside. Taylor called her 30-year-old sister Jessica, her voice breaking as she described the devastation. Jessica Harris had always been Taylor's closest ally, the one person who understood the pressure of running a business and the sacrifices required to succeed in the male-dominated tech industry. Jessica promised to rush over immediately, her voice filled with the technical expertise and emotional support that Taylor desperately needed. When Jessica arrived 30 minutes later, Taylor was documenting the damage with Detective Sarah Chen from the Seattle Police Department's cybercrime unit. Jessica surveyed the destruction with what appeared to be genuine shock, immediately beginning to help analyze the sophisticated nature of the attack. "They got into your backup servers," Jessica said, pointing to the empty server room behind Taylor's office, "the ones with all your client source code and proprietary algorithms." Taylor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November Seattle rain. She had never told anyone about the backup servers, not even her lead developer or IT security consultant. It was her private insurance policy containing encrypted copies of every valuable piece of intellectual property developed by Harris Tech Solutions. "How did you know about those servers?" Taylor asked carefully. Jessica's expression flickered for just a moment before she recovered. "You mentioned them before, remember? When you were talking about disaster recovery after that ransomware scare last year." Taylor didn't remember that conversation, but the chaos of the morning made it difficult to think clearly. Still, something about Jessica's immediate identification of the most valuable stolen assets seemed unusual for someone whose visits to the office were typically social rather than technical. At 2 a.m. that night, Taylor returned to her office to retrieve some personal files she had forgotten during the police investigation. As she gathered framed photographs from her damaged desk, she found one that made her heart stop. A childhood picture of herself and Jessica at their high school graduation, both girls smiling in their caps and gowns. Someone had carved deep scratches across Taylor's face with a sharp object, leaving gouges in the photograph that looked almost violent. On the back, written in handwriting that looked disturbingly familiar, was a message that made Taylor's blood run cold. "She took everything from me. Now it's my turn." Taylor stared at the handwriting, comparing it mentally to birthday cards and notes she had received from Jessica over the years. The similarities were unmistakable, but the implications were too devastating to accept. Her own sister couldn't be responsible for the systematic destruction of her life, could she? The next morning, Taylor received a phone call that would change everything. Linda Rodriguez, who had been the Harris family's housekeeper and nanny for 25 years, had disappeared shortly after Taylor's parents moved to Florida 18 months earlier. Linda's voice was thin and frightened when she called Taylor's cell phone. "Miss Taylor, I've been hiding, but I can't stay quiet anymore. I heard about your business troubles on the news. There are things you need to know about Jessica, things your parents never wanted either of you to find out." They arranged to meet at St. James Cathedral, an old church in Seattle's First Hill neighborhood where Linda felt safe from whatever had driven her into hiding. When Taylor arrived, she barely recognized the woman who had practically raised her. Linda had lost significant weight and appeared constantly nervous, glancing around as if expecting someone to be watching. "Your sister drove your parents away from Seattle," Linda began, without preamble. "I saw her threatening your father in his study the week before they moved. She was holding papers and screaming about lies and deception. Your parents were terrified of her, Miss Taylor. They left because they were afraid of what Jessica might do." Taylor felt the world tilt around her. "What are you talking about?" "Jessica was heartbroken when they moved. She cried for days. Linda pulled out a manila envelope containing photographs, documents, and papers that would shatter Taylor's understanding of her family forever. The first photograph showed Jessica in their parents' backyard, holding documents and wearing an expression of rage that Taylor had never seen before. "Jessica isn't your biological sister," Linda said quietly. "She was adopted when she was 3 years old, after her birth mother abandoned her. Your parents never told either of you because they wanted you to grow up as real sisters." The adoption agency specialized in matching children who looked similar. Linda spread out adoption papers and Jessica's original birth certificate on the church pew between them. The birth certificate listed her name as Rachel Morgan, born to a teenage mother who had signed away all parental rights. "Jessica found these papers in your father's safe the week before your parents moved," Linda continued. "But that's not all she found. She also discovered their will, the one that leaves everything to you and nothing to her." Taylor stared at the legal documents, understanding beginning to dawn like a terrible sunrise. The will was clear: the family home, the investment accounts, the life insurance policies, even the small tech patents their father had developed. Everything would go to Taylor upon their parents' deaths. Jessica was mentioned only in a single paragraph that acknowledged her as an adopted daughter but provided no inheritance. Linda handed Taylor a letter written in Jessica's handwriting, clearly composed in a moment of bitter fury. "They lied to me my whole life, made me believe I belonged, made me call them mom and dad. But when it comes down to it, blood matters more than love. They're giving everything to her and leaving me with nothing. Well, if I can't have what's mine by right, then I'll take it another way. Taylor has gotten everything handed to her from day one. Time for her to know what it feels like to lose everything, just like I did." "She's been planning this for 15 years, Linda whispered, "ever since she found those papers. Miss Taylor, you have to be careful. Don't let her know that you know the truth." That evening, Taylor tried to act normal during dinner with Jessica at their usual seafood restaurant in Pike Place Market. She casually asked about their parents' sudden move to Florida, watching Jessica's face carefully for any sign of deception. For just a moment, Jessica's mask slipped, revealing a flash of something cold and calculating before she quickly resumed her concerned expression. "I still don't understand why they left so suddenly," Jessica said. "It hurt both of us, but I guess they needed a fresh start." Throughout dinner, Jessica made subtle comments about how the business had always been Taylor's obsession, how she had always felt like a charity case, how some people just seemed to get all the opportunities. Each remark carried an undertone of bitterness that Taylor was finally beginning to recognize. That night, Taylor checked her system logs with new understanding. Her cybersecurity consultant had mentioned sophisticated malware accessing her networks, but Taylor had assumed it was industrial espionage or foreign hackers. Now she requested a detailed analysis of the security breach. The results were devastating. For over 18 months, someone with administrative credentials had been copying proprietary code, redirecting client communications, and creating backdoors into every system Harris Tech Solutions operated. The attack vectors traced to a location near Jessica's apartment in Capitol Hill. Taylor realized that Jessica's computer science degree from the University of Washington, which Taylor had helped pay for, had given her the technical skills to orchestrate a sophisticated cyber attack. Jessica had been using her access to Taylor's home office, gained during family dinners and holidays, to memorize passwords and study security protocols. The next morning, Jessica called with news that confirmed Taylor's worst fears. "I just heard from Michael Chen at Pacific Northwest Bank," Jessica said, her voice filled with fake concern. "He said there's been suspicious activity on your business accounts and they're freezing everything pending investigation." Taylor's blood ran cold. Michael Chen had left Pacific Northwest Bank 3 years earlier, a fact that Jessica couldn't possibly know unless she had been the one communicating with the bank using false information. Jessica was warning Taylor about the very theft she had committed, playing the role of concerned sister while covering her tracks. Taylor finally understood the full scope of Jessica's psychological warfare. For years, Jessica had played the perfect supporting sister, comforting Taylor through every crisis while secretly being the architect of those crises. She had weaponized Taylor's love and trust, using every sisterly moment to gather intelligence for her revenge. Jessica had never shown jealousy or resentment openly. Instead, she had cultivated the image of the supportive younger sister, making her the perfect cover for years of meticulous sabotage. Every family dinner, every shared confidence, every moment of sisterly bonding had been part of an elaborate performance designed to position Jessica for the perfect revenge. Taylor realized that the sister she had loved and trusted her entire life had never really existed. Rachel Morgan, the abandoned child who had never felt she truly belonged, had been planning this destruction since the moment she discovered the truth about her adoption and inheritance. With a heavy heart, Taylor contacted Detective Maria Santos, a friend from the University of Washington who specialized in cybercrime. Reporting Jessica for identity theft and computer fraud felt like a betrayal of family loyalty, but Taylor finally understood that her loyalty had been a one-way street for over a decade. The investigation uncovered the stunning scope of Jessica's revenge plot. Years of sabotage, financial theft, and psychological manipulation had been carefully orchestrated to destroy Taylor's business and reputation. Every shared moment between the sisters had been part of Jessica's elaborate performance, every act of sisterly support designed to gather information for the next attack. Jessica's computer contained detailed files about Taylor's business, clients, and personal finances. Email threads revealed months of coordination with competitors, false tips to regulatory agencies, and even payments to individuals who had spread rumors about Taylor's professional conduct. The evidence of Jessica's deception was overwhelming. Server logs showed systematic theft of proprietary code, forged contracts that created liability for Taylor's company, and fraudulent tax documents that had triggered government investigations. Jessica had even created fake LinkedIn profiles to spread negative reviews and damaging stories about Harris Tech Solutions. 8 months later, Jessica was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for identity theft, computer fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. During the sentencing hearing, she remained defiant, showing no remorse for the destruction she had caused or the trust she had betrayed. Linda Rodriguez testified about Jessica's threats against their parents and the campaign of intimidation that had driven them from their home. Taylor's parents returned to Seattle for the trial, leading to a tearful reunion and the beginning of a new relationship based on truth rather than the lies that Jessica had used to manipulate them. Taylor slowly rebuilt Harris Tech Solutions with new security measures and a deeper understanding of how trust could be weaponized by those closest to us. She started a non-profit organization to help small businesses recover from cyber attacks, particularly those perpetrated by trusted insiders. The healing process was slow but real. Taylor had to accept that the sister she had loved for 30 years had never really existed, but she refused to let Jessica's betrayal destroy her capacity for love and trust. The love Taylor had felt was real, even if it had been misdirected towards someone who saw it as weakness rather than strength. A year after Jessica's conviction, Taylor found a strange sense of completion. She was finally free from the psychological warfare that had defined her life for over a decade, free from the constant anxiety of wondering when the next attack would come, and free from the burden of loving someone who had never loved her in return. The adoption papers that had started Jessica's journey toward revenge gathered dust in evidence storage, testimony to the destructive power of secrets and the importance of truth in family relationships. Taylor had learned that blood might create biological connections, but family was built on love, trust, and mutual respect, qualities that Jessica had never possessed despite 27 years of perfect performance. Linda Rodriguez returned to work for Taylor's parents in their Florida home, finally free from the fear that had driven her into hiding. The Harris family was smaller now, but stronger, built on honesty rather than the lies that had allowed Jessica's deception to flourish for so long. Taylor kept one photograph from her destroyed office, the graduation picture with Jessica's face scratched out, not as a reminder of the betrayal, but as a testament to her own survival and the truth that emerged from the ashes of Jessica's revenge. Sometimes the people who know us best are the ones capable of hurting us most deeply, but healing comes from understanding that their actions reflect their character, not our worth. In the end, Jessica's 15-year revenge plot had backfired completely. Instead of destroying Taylor, it had freed her from a toxic relationship that had been poisoning her life since childhood. Taylor had lost a sister, but gained something more valuable: the knowledge that she was strong enough to survive the worst betrayal imaginable and rebuild her life on a foundation of truth. The last entry in Taylor's journal about the ordeal was simple but profound. "I thought I lost everything, but I gained myself. Jessica's revenge gave me the greatest gift of all, freedom from the lies that were holding me back." Sometimes the people who try to destroy us end up saving us instead. Years later, when young entrepreneurs would ask Taylor about overcoming betrayal and setbacks, she would tell them about the importance of trusting carefully, loving wisely, and never underestimating the capacity for good that exists even in the darkest situations. Jessica's hatred had created destruction, but it had also revealed the love and support of people like Linda Rodriguez and Detective Santos, proving that for every person who chooses revenge, there are others who choose justice and healing. The Harris Tech Solutions office was rebuilt stronger than before, with security measures that protected against both external threats and internal betrayal. But more importantly, Taylor had rebuilt herself with the same care and attention, creating a life that was no longer vulnerable to those who would exploit trust for personal gain. Rachel Morgan served her full sentence, never acknowledging the pain she had caused or expressing genuine remorse for her actions. But Taylor had moved beyond needing Jessica's apology or understanding. True healing came from accepting that some people are incapable of love, growth, or redemption, and that protecting ourselves from their toxicity is an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. In the end, Jessica's adoption secret had been less important than the choice she made about how to handle that knowledge. Taylor realized that family wasn't about shared blood or perfect childhoods. It was about choosing to support and protect each other, even when life revealed uncomfortable truths. Jessica had chosen revenge, but Taylor had chosen forgiveness, healing, and the courage to build new relationships based on honesty and mutual respect. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.